amendments that these groups are calling for are number one, to allow businesses and community buildings to participate in the scheme. Number two, to increase the system size for the tariff to 10 kilowatts. Make the 60 cents tariff payable on gross generation, not net generation. I can see where the crowd's at on that one. Ensure all renewable energy producers included in the scheme are actually paid for the energy they produce. And to ensure that the Minister report publicly the distribution company's annual report on connected qualifying solar energy generation, so that this doesn't slip by quietly.
Now the Minister looked me in the eye and said, the reason we're going this way is because solar's expensive and we're, his government, for least cost abatement. And state government, more than federal government, has the tools in its hands to make deep cuts to our missions. They control land use, they control native vegetation clearing, old growth forests, they set standards for buildings, they build the public transport system, and it just goes on and on and on. The state government could set us on a path to deep cuts and provide the momentum we need to know that this is a problem that can be solved. Thank you very much for being part of the solution.
Thank you very much, Victoria, and thanks for the opportunity to come along here and say a few words about this bill and where we're coming from and our approach to it. Now, it doesn't need me to tell you what an appalling piece of legislation it is that the state government has brought in to this parliament. They've taken a year to get it to the parliament. They started off by announcing 60 cents a kilowatt hour. What a wonderful innovation. Even last year we started to hear of all the clawbacks on that, but then there were further clawbacks when the bill came to the parliament. It can only be obtained on your principal place of residence. It can only be obtained on a unit of up to 3.2 kilowatt hours. You can't have it on a small business, community property, anything other than your principal place of residence. You can never actually get paid in cash for what you feed into the grid. You can only get a credit. And then on top of that, they say with these credits you either use them or lose them. If you don't use them every 12 months, the slate gets wiped clean. And you also lose them, and this hasn't got much public attention, you lose them if you change your retailer. So what does that say about commitment to choice and competition? So this is a shocking bill, and the dilemma that we face in some ways is a bit analogous to the dilemma that the non-Labor parties face in Canberra about the carbon pollution reduction scheme, so-called. What on earth can you do with something that's so bad to start off with? So let me say a few words about where we're coming from on it. We have been strong supporters of having a feed-in tariff that is fair and reflects the value of the energy that people feed into the grid, and we are strongly supportive of ensuring that the market works well to achieve such a feed-in tariff result. We've also been very supportive of initiatives such as the solar panel rebate that, as you know, was ramped up under the previous coalition government, is still being continued. We've also been supportive of the funding that federal and state governments have provided for larger scale solar power. There's a further factor that we've been pushing in this debate that hasn't got the attention that it deserves, and that's the issue of the so-called smart meters, the interval meters that in fact under the Brumby government are turning out more to be dumb meters. What these meters ought to be doing is allowing you to earn top dollar for solar panel power that you feed into the grid at times of peak power. Peak power prices can hit $10,000 a megawatt hour. That translates at a retail level to something like $10 a kilowatt hour. So if you had decent smart meters in place, you'd have far more opportunities than what you've got under the current regime. And that was promised to start in 2006. They're now slowly being rolled out, and even then there are questions about the lack of design features, the lack of power that they give you as ordinary power consumers to manage your power consumption. So where have we got to with the bill? Well, what we desperately need to form a proper assessment of this bill some decent information. And I paid tribute to my colleague David Davis, the Shadow Minister for Environment and Upper House Leader, because he pushed through the Legislative Council for a motion to require the government to disclose documentation about what's going on. Eventually, reluctantly, they disclosed a limited amount of documentation, and some of that's been mentioned by earlier speakers. But what this documentation does, in many respects, it raises more questions than it answers. And we've got a long list of questions on which we are looking for further information. And just to run through a few of them, the issue of what is the true cost of the government scheme, what is the true cost of alternative schemes. We've had mention of the $100 figure that Brumby and Batchelor have been trumpeting. We want to get to the bottom of their calculations of that and the bottom of the more accurate calculations of alternative models. We want to know whether it's going to be all electricity customers or just household customers that are going to be involved in supporting the introduction of feed-in tariffs. We want to know what is the new metering that people are going to have to put on their houses to take part in the Labor feed-in tariff scheme. What are those new meters going to be cost? Who is going to get the benefit of the power that's fed into the grid, and has that benefit been included in the costings? It's certainly not included in the legislation. Is it in fact correct that the slate gets wiped clean for credits every 12 months? Even if you've just earned your credit a month earlier, is it going to be wiped out on the 12th anniversary of starting under the scheme? That's what the bill seems to say. Who's going to get the benefit of those extinguished credits? Are they going to give a windfall gain to the retailers? Will the government release the legal advice which it says is the justification for not allowing you to get cash for what you feed into the grid and only give you a credit? It certainly hasn't released that so far. And last but not least, is the state government in breach of the commitments that it itself has given to COAG under national competition principles for a national feed-in tariff scheme? These are all unanswered questions that we are intending to pursue. The legislation is not scheduled for debate in the Legislative Council now until June. We're intending to press in the Upper House to get more information so that we can assess this bill in a responsible manner and do our best to achieve an outcome that is the best that can be achieved in all the circumstances. There's a lot more work that we feel needs to be done on that. We're looking forward to working with Environment Victoria on others to try to get a constructive and positive solution and a constructive and positive way forward. Thank you very much.
Bravo.